The concept basically was that there wasn't too much justice in America. Now that opened the door, and then we said, well, why don't we start a nonprofit supported by the class of 1958 to establish centers for law and justice all over the country.
And I was at that 35th law school reunion where Ralph Nader and Rick Medali and others had arranged in an afternoon for those of us who were interested to meet and talk about the possibility of a new organization.
It's good to have fun and games at the reunion, but maybe we should try to do something a little different.
What are we going to do when our grandkids ask, well, what did you ever do useful in your life, Grandpa? And this is our chance.
I've never liked bullies. Ever since I was a little boy, I just couldn't stand big boys beating up little boys in the schoolyard. And I got almost a physical reaction against it. And when I became an adult, I saw that there were a lot of bullies. There were corporate bullies, there were government bullies, there were military bullies. And my orientation has always been to develop systems.
Systemic reform involves trying to tackle an issue that involves a whole group of unrepresented people.
The notion is that we could do something which was bigger and more lasting.
To give the underserved the same kind of quality advice and planning and legislative help and lobbying that corporate America has.
We would not limit ourselves to traditional litigation type things. We would look for large transactions affecting large numbers of people in a lasting way.
I think it's pretty exciting that the founders were at a reunion at their law school, and instead of just drinking and partying with their friends and maybe hearing an interesting speaker, they said, what are we going to do to have a lasting meaning?
What Appleseed does so well is not just use lawyers' skills at investigating and writing and documenting problems, but then advocating for realistic, evidence-based solutions.
There are some organizations that simply issue a report and they pat themselves on the back and say, what a good boy or good girl am I. I like to say Appleseed doesn't throw a stink bomb and run. We then roll up our sleeves after step one and make sure that we're accomplishing what we need to by advocating for the change that we want to see.
I'm a business person. I don't like white papers. I don't want to study something, come up with a white paper and publish it and that's it. I want to see something done.
One of the things that's great about Appleseed is its focus on practical, achievable solutions. Being able to not only scope out a problem and do the research and figure out what the problem is and how it might be addressed, but also try to come up with solutions that can be achieved quickly and effectively in real time.
We can't boil the ocean. We can't solve a problem like poverty. But what Appleseed can do, and what Appleseed has done, is to break down a problem like poverty into parts that can be solved.
We aren't looking to help just one individual address their individual situation. We're going after, the whole enchilada. We're going after systemic change, changing something that's impacting large groups of people. And that feels really good. At the end of the day, when you can say 10,000 people are now in a better situation because of what we were able to do, that's gratifying and inspiring, and what keeps you going at the end of the day.
Out of a small luncheon of classmates of 1958, we have now a national organization of Appleseed with 17 affiliated centers for law and justice. And it just shows you that it's a lot easier than we think to produce a lot of justice, because Appleseed really, in the areas it's worked in, has produced a lot of justice for people in need of it.
It's been a great experience. I mean, we've worked on some really good projects. One was the integrating a school in Brooklyn between a rich neighborhood and in a very poor neighborhood, getting the Department of Education to agree on coming up with a program to really integrate both communities.
The purpose of our project was to increase the racial diversity of the New York City public school system. Racial diversity has been proven to be one of the most effective tools in helping the educational outcomes of all children, regardless of race.
We weren't lawyers, I fix cars for a living. We were, parents, we were community leaders, we were educators, but we weren't very well versed on these issues, and we were fortunate enough to meet the folks at Appleseed who gave us the information that we're working on a national level with resources and staff that knew the issues well, and they could really, help us find solutions.
We had been researching this issue of segregation in New York City schools for over 2 years. This is a model student assignment plan that can be used by other schools across the city eventually. We're going to work out some of the kinks and, figure out how it works with PS 133, but eventually this will be a systemic solution to the problem of racial and economic segregation in New York City.
And so back in 1996, we created Nebraska Appleseed, and we're still here today. We were one of the first Appleseeds, really, to get out of the box.
So in Nebraska every year, there are about 300 or so former foster youth who age out of the system. And for a lot of those kids, statistically speaking, the outcomes are pretty grim. A lot of them don't succeed.
Most of the time in the foster care system, everything's done for you. Your doctor's appointment's set up. You have someone there in your foster home that makes you dinner. They don't sit there most of the time and actually say, well, you're turning of age. Do you know how to do your laundry? Do you know how to set up car insurance? That's the least of the worries. And then it comes to the point and says, oh, well, happy birthday. You're out of the system now. We aren't receiving any funding to assist anymore, so we're gonna have to let you go ahead and move out on your own.
The legislation that we've worked on, LB 216, would provide those supports, help with housing, help with education, help with access to health care.
The bill would ensure that every child has someone in their corner fighting for them and helping them get those resources just like any other parent would do for their child.
You start scoring minor little victories. And what happens is the people in the organization start to see that you're getting things done, and they start to buy into it, and then it gains momentum, and eventually you can effectuate really significant change, but you gotta understand, you gotta do it in small little bites.
We've worked on everything from financial access and asset building issues to education, foster care, fixing all kinds of problems in New York City. There's a huge range of issues.
Well, Appleseed showed me, for a lot of people, what is my rights, what I had to do. We had to fight hand to hand, everybody together.
It renews faith that there are people and organizations out there that are willing to go out on a limb and help you. They're a lifeline. For anybody that needs them, they are a lifeline.
I think they've also been fortunate in the quality of the people they've been able to attract to the board. And I think that also tends to attract a strong staff. So all of that, I think, drives an organization.
I think we have big shoes to fill. I think that the class of 58 of Harvard has been phenomenally successful in a variety of different areas of the law.
From zero to where they got us now was such a big achievement for them that it's certainly a hope that we'll be able to move it forward.
In Mexico, the impact that the pro bono can make in our society is huge. And I think that the lawyers can give us the framework and how, as a society, we should do better and improve our ways to deal with all these problems.
I think it gives you more hope because you realize that through this model you can really leverage talent and really accomplish a great deal more than you might otherwise think.
Law school is not a place where people are naturally that friendly. But boy, since then, it's been 20 years of wonderful, wonderful relationships.
For sure.
Charity is soup kitchens to feed hungry people. Very important. But it doesn't solve the problem long-term of hunger. Justice asks, why can't people have good-paying jobs, living wage, so they don't have to go hungry and go to soup kitchens?
There's a satisfaction that they thought they'd find in law school, but probably didn't, thought they'd find in practice, and probably didn't, but can find through an organization such as Appleseed.
Yes, that you can, working together, you can make a difference. And it's a matter of great satisfaction.